Hello, my name is Grace Carter, and I'm 34 years old. Life has never been simple for me, but I've always done my best to make the most of what I have. For years, I believed I had the perfect life. I was married to a man I deeply loved, Michael, and I cherished my stepson, Jamie, as if he were my own. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Sometimes, the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. My story is one of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, resilience. It began on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. After a long day at work, I was eager for a quiet evening at home. Little did I know, my life was about to take an unexpected turn. When I walked through the door, I immediately sensed something was off. Michael stood in the living room, arms crossed, his expression stormy. Jamie sat on the couch, staring at the floor, refusing to meet my eyes. "Grace," Michael said, his voice cold, "we need to talk." My stomach sank at his tone. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Michael's jaw tightened. "Jamie told me what you've been doing behind my back." I blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" Jamie finally looked up, tears welling in his eyes. "I saw you, Grace," he said shakily. "You were on the phone, laughing and smiling. You said you couldn't wait to meet him." My heart dropped. Jamie had misunderstood something. "Jamie, that's not true. I was talking to Lydia, my best friend, about meeting her for coffee." But Michael didn't budge. "Do you think I'm an idiot, Grace?" Jamie wouldn't lie about this. No matter how much I tried to explain, Michael refused to believe me. He was convinced I had been unfaithful. His cold words echoed in my ears. "I can't have someone like you in my house. Pack your things and leave." I looked to Jamie, hoping he would say something to defend me, but he remained silent. My heart shattered. That night, with tears streaming down my face, I packed my belongings. The home I had worked so hard to make warm and loving now felt like a stranger's house. Michael didn't even glance at me as I left. Jamie stood silently at the top of the stairs, watching but saying nothing. I stayed at Lydia's that night, pouring out my heart to her. She listened, offering comfort and reassurance. "Grace, you don't deserve this," she said. "You've done so much for them, and this is how they repay you? You're better off without them." Her words were kind, but I couldn't stop thinking about Jamie. He was just a kid. I was certain someone had manipulated him into believing a lie. The following weeks were some of the hardest of my life. I found a small apartment and focused on rebuilding, but no matter how much I tried to move forward, questions haunted me. Why would Jamie say such a thing? And why did Michael believe him so easily? One day, while grocery shopping, I ran into Mrs. Linton, an elderly neighbor. She had always been kind to me, but her concerned expression gave me pause. "Grace, dear," she said, "how are you?" I was so shocked to hear what happened. "You know about it?" I asked cautiously. "Oh, yes," she said, lowering her voice. "Jamie told my grandson that he had to tell his father the truth, that you were planning to leave Michael for someone else." My stomach twisted. Did he say anything else? Mrs. Linton hesitated. "Well, he mentioned how much he hated you trying to discipline him. Said he wanted things to go back to how they were before you came into their lives." Her words hit me hard. Jamie wasn't misled. He had a motive. Memories flooded back, his reluctance to listen to me, his occasional outbursts, and the way he clung to Michael whenever I tried to set rules. It all made sense now. Jamie had been struggling to accept me as a parental figure and fabricated this story to push me out. But Michael? Why had he believed Jamie so easily? That question gnawed at me. With Lydia's encouragement, I began digging deeper. Conversations with neighbors, mutual friends, and even Michael's coworkers painted a clearer picture. Michael had been under immense pressure at work, and my efforts to establish boundaries with Jamie had caused tension. Jamie, seeing this, exploited the situation, feeding Michael a lie he was all too willing to believe. Yet, something unexpected surfaced. A coworker mentioned overhearing Michael express regret about certain decisions. "What kind of decisions?" I asked, my heart racing. The coworker shrugged. He didn't say much, but he looked conflicted, like he knew he'd made a mistake. Just when I thought I was beginning to understand the situation, a text message from Michael interrupted my thoughts. It was brief but unexpected. "Grace, I need to talk to you. Please meet me at the cafe near your old office." I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but another, a bitter, determined part, craved answers. I replied, agreeing to meet him the following day. When I arrived, Michael was already there, looking more stressed than I'd ever seen him. He stood as I approached, but I remained where I was, crossing my arms. "What do you want, Michael?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. He glanced down at the table before meeting my eyes. "Grace, I think I made a mistake." "Oh, you think?" I replied, unable to mask the bitterness in my tone. "You kicked me out without even hearing my side of the story. What do you expect me to say?" Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was under a lot of pressure. And Jamie, he seemed so convincing, but now I'm realizing I might have been wrong. Hearing him admit his mistake gave me a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but it wasn't enough. "You didn't just make a mistake, Michael," I said firmly. "You betrayed me. You chose to believe a child's lie over your wife's honesty." Michael looked genuinely remorseful, but forgiveness wasn't something I was ready to offer. "I need time to think about this," I said, standing. "But don't think you can just apologize and make everything okay. You'll have to prove to me that you're willing to change." As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a surge of strength I hadn't felt in weeks. The meeting lingered in my mind, but I refused to let it consume me. If Michael wanted me to consider his apology, he would have to earn it. A week later, I was surprised to find Jamie standing at my apartment door, clutching his backpack and shifting nervously. "Jamie?" I asked, confused. "What are you doing here?" I need to talk to you," he stammered, his voice trembling. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to face him, but something about his vulnerability made me step aside and let him in. As soon as the door closed, Jamie burst into tears. "I'm sorry, Grace," he sobbed. "I didn't mean for everything to get so bad. I just wanted Dad to spend more time with me." I led Jamie to the couch and sat beside him, trying to process his words. "Jamie, you need to explain. Why did you lie about me?" Through his tears, Jamie admitted everything. He confessed that he had felt jealous of the time Michael and I spent together and resented the rules I had set for him. Realizing how much Michael trusted him, he saw an opportunity to push me out of the house. "I thought if you were gone, things would go back to the way they were," he said, his voice cracking. "But it didn't. Dad's been so angry and sad, and I feel awful. I didn't think it would turn out like this." Hearing Jamie's confession was heartbreaking. I wanted to be angry, but all I saw was a child who had made a terrible mistake out of fear and insecurity. "Jamie," I said gently, "do you understand how much pain you caused? You didn't just hurt me, you hurt your dad, too. Families are supposed to support each other, not tear each other apart." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know. I'm so sorry, Grace. I'll do anything to fix it. Please don't hate me." I sighed, my heart heavy. "I don't hate you, Jamie, but fixing this won't be easy. You need to tell your dad the truth." The next evening, Jamie asked me to come with him to Michael's house so he could confess. The thought of stepping back into that house made my stomach churn, but I agreed. When we arrived, Michael looked surprised and wary to see me. Before he could say anything, Jamie stepped forward. "Dad, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice trembling. "I lied about Grace. She didn't do any of the things I said. I made it all up because I wanted her to leave." Michael's face went pale. "Jamie, what are you talking about?" "I was jealous," Jamie admitted, tears welling up again. "I thought if Grace was gone, things would be better, but I was wrong. I'm so sorry, Dad." Michael turned to me, his eyes filled with guilt and shame. "Grace, I don't know what to say. I can't believe I let this happen. I'm so sorry for everything." I crossed my arms, keeping my expression neutral. "Michael, Jamie's owning up to his mistake. But what about you? You didn't just believe his lie, you acted on it without giving me a chance to explain. Do you have any idea how much that hurt?" Michael nodded, his voice breaking. "I do, and I'll never forgive myself for it. I was so caught up in everything else that I didn't stop to think. I let you down, and I let Jamie down, too." Their apologies were a step in the right direction, but I wasn't ready to let go of the pain. "This isn't something we can fix overnight," I said firmly. "It's going to take time and effort from both of you to rebuild the trust that was broken." Michael nodded eagerly. "I'll do whatever it takes, Grace. I mean it. I just want a chance to make things right." Jamie looked at me, his eyes filled with hope. "Me too, Grace. I promise I'll do better." I laid out my conditions clearly. If they wanted to repair our relationship, they needed to commit to open communication and mutual respect. Jamie had to accept me as part of the family and follow the rules we set together. Michael needed to prove that he valued our marriage enough to stand by me, even when things got tough. They both agreed, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope, but I knew this was just the beginning. As I left Michael's house that night, a storm of emotions churned inside me: relief, cautious optimism, and a lingering sadness for what had been lost. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to walk it on my own terms. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and tentative steps toward rebuilding what had been shattered. I wasn't ready to fully embrace my marriage again, but I also wasn't ready to close the door on it completely. If there was any chance of moving forward, Michael and Jamie needed to understand the depth of the hurt they had caused and commit to the hard work required to mend it. Michael called me every evening, updating me on his progress. He had enrolled in a parenting workshop to improve his communication with Jamie and had started therapy to confront his impulsive tendencies and his failure to listen. "Grace, I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said during one call. "I know I failed you, and I can't expect your forgiveness overnight, but I promise, I'm committed to doing better for you and for Jamie." It was clear he was taking this seriously. But words alone wouldn't suffice. I needed to see consistent, meaningful actions. Jamie, too, was making efforts to change. With the help of a child therapist, he began addressing his jealousy and insecurities. One day, he handed me a heartfelt letter. In it, he apologized again for his actions and expressed a sincere desire to make amends. In a particularly touching moment, Jamie looked up at me, his voice steady yet earnest. "Can we start over, Grace? I want to be a better stepson. I know I messed up, but I want us to be a family again." His words brought a smile to my face. "We'll get there, Jamie, but it'll take time and effort from both of us." While Michael and Jamie worked on themselves, I focused on my own healing. I threw myself into my work, taking on new projects and starting a side business I'd always dreamed about. The independence I cultivated during those weeks was empowering, a reminder that my worth wasn't tied to anyone else's actions or opinions. I also reconnected with old friends, who reminded me of the person I was before the chaos. Their support became an invaluable anchor as I navigated this challenging chapter. After 2 months, Michael asked if we could meet again, this time as a family. He wanted Jamie to be part of the conversation so we could discuss how to move forward. I agreed but made my expectations clear. This isn't about picking up where we left off. I told him, it's about setting boundaries and building something new on solid ground. We met at a small park near a cozy cafe. Michael had brought a notebook filled with ideas for improving our family dynamic, and Jamie had prepared a list of personal goals. Grace, Michael began, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for everything. I've been working hard to become a better husband and father, and I hope you can see that. Jamie added, his voice steady and sincere, I've been working on myself too, Grace. I know I have a lot to prove, but I want you to know I'm serious about being better. I listened, taking in their words and the sincerity behind them. When it was my turn, I emphasized the importance of respect, trust, and open communication moving forward. By the end of the conversation, we had come to an agreement. We would take things one step at a time, focusing on rebuilding trust and strengthening our relationships. Michael and Jamie would continue their therapy, and I would maintain my independence while giving our family dynamic the opportunity to heal. We hugged before parting ways, a tentative but hopeful gesture. The journey had been far from easy, but it taught me valuable lessons about resilience, self-worth, and the power of forgiveness. While the pain of betrayal still lingered, I chose to focus on the growth that had emerged from it. In the weeks that followed, I noticed real changes in Michael and Jamie. They communicated more openly, treated me with respect, and showed genuine commitment to making our family work. The road ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Healing wasn't just about mending broken relationships. It was about finding the strength within myself to move forward, no matter what the future held.